The EU is falling victim to the Euro-viral contagion as Greece fears an exit of the Eurozone. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into how the EU is suffering and how this will connect into the global economy. We'll get into this article right here, the most important article of the day, and that is talking about capital controls. This is out of Reuters. The situation of the banks is getting more and more difficult every day. That's a European official saying this. In the end, in order to safeguard the banking system, capital controls will probably have to be imposed. I've been warning about this since my book came out, since I've done this YouTube channel, that they will do these kind of things. Why? Not because I have a crystal ball, but because they have done this so many times before, and then they always warn prior to it happening. Here it is happening before our very eyes. They're giving us the warning right here. But consistently, we hear of this type of talk as fear-mongering when you warn about it. But of course, that is not the case. There are simply many ways that they can do this. They can do a bail-in. They can call it a levy. They can call it a tax. They can do it capital controls. Whatever you want to call it, it basically means that you have less money than you did before, whether you can't access it or whether it is just stolen right from you, as they did in Cyprus. All of these countries around the world have gathered together in Brisbane, Australia, in order to implement the rules and have it be a global policy for bail-ins. That is very concerning. What they're doing in here with Greece is simply they're going to allow the banks to shut off the amount of money that you're allowed to take out. So you might have $10,000 in the bank, but you're only allowed to take out $100 per day, let's say. And that is effectively what they look like they're going to be doing. And I'll connect that in with the next article. Just know that I've warned you specifically about this information. And people are wondering, well, if I'm going to take my money out of the bank, what am I going to do with it? Well, I'll try and discuss that at the very end of this video. I've discussed that in many other videos, but I will again add it to another video here. And perhaps I will have to make an educational video specifically to add to my e-course. And I'll add that there. And let's go on to this. There are many Greeks who are fearing exactly what's happening, so they're pulling their money out of the bank and probably stuffing it under their mattress. Not the best idea. However, they're worried about the bank, so they're thinking, well, I'm just going to pull my money out. In fact, there have been billions of dollars pulled out of the banking system in Greece. Right here, banks are being kept afloat through the ELA, that's the Emergency Liquidity Assistance Lifeline, extended by the Bank of Greece, subject to approval by the ECB. The ELA pool, which currently stands at 65 billion euros, is extended to solvent lenders as a temporary measure to cover liquidity shortages. So people pull their money out, all they do is print up money out of thin air, and they send it back into the bank for it then to be pulled out again. So this is exactly how they're able to deal with problems, is simply by covering them up. If you have a gunshot wound, just put enough bandages on top of it and you will be able to stop the bleeding. So that's what they're trying to do. It's not working. Obviously, they're not coming to any solutions here, and it is very difficult, admittedly, for the new Greek government to actually make any decisions when you have so much bureaucracy on top of them. When you have the EU making all the decisions for them, they had the Troika basically deciding everything that happens in Greece. But with all this chaos that's going on, with all the fears of a Greece exit, look at the stock market in the US. We're seeing an extremely high rate of increase that is going on right now, and it head to 2100 on the S&P. Can you believe it? And of course, nothing that goes wrong ever seems to affect the stock market. Why? Because it's being pushed up artificially. People are actually concerned about this in the world, but the stock market keeps rising, so who cares? This is all that happens. Now let's connect it in with the next chart right here, and you could see mission accomplished. This is the S&P 500, and you're looking at how the market declines on a day, and then the very next day they recover their losses. There are many reasons why this is occurring, but even with all of the bad news out of Greece, they simply look for any little sliver of good news, and that's enough to make the market rise, because the market is desperate to increase. There are always hedge fund managers of any type, and traders, of course, looking for ways to make money today, not over the next week or over the next month. They're looking to make money before the market close, and that's what happens right here. This is one very good example. This is another chart, and of course it's not labeled for a reason, but essentially this right here, the blue line is the PE ratios from the tech stocks, and then the red line is actually from the energy market, and you can see the blue line went skyrocketing high approximately the year 2000 with the tech stocks boom, and now it's down to about 16, 17 there. And you could see just recently the PE ratios have skyrocketed in energy. So we're seeing something that's very, very unnatural that is occurring. And this is just some information I wanted to share with you, that PE ratios are way out of whack in the energy sector right now. I'll talk to you briefly about, in my book, about PE ratios, just in case you aren't aware. The average PE ratio since 1871, as compiled by economist Robert Shiller, is about 16. During the tech boom, on average, it was double to triple that number. Many stocks even had PE ratios that were closing in on 100. It's important to note that an unusually high PE ratio can be an indicator of a bubble. Now, what's happened with the energy sector is something that is very brief, okay? It's not necessarily that this has been going on for the past 6 months or a year. This is just recently with all the chaos that is happening with oil. Now, we need to understand that these are more indicators for us to look at. That's why I'm bringing it to you here. We don't necessarily just follow one indicator like a PE ratio and be able to determine a bubble necessarily. We need to use that along with the hundreds of other indicators and see where everything is going. So look at this right here, where Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, exited a $3.7 billion investment in Exxon Mobil amid a slump in oil prices. Now, this is out of Bloomberg here. And what's interesting about this to me is that Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, they do not buy or sell stocks very often. They're methodical. They're very slow at this. Could this mean, and I'm just suggesting, could this mean that we are headed for a deeper decline in the price of oil? I'm not too sure. However, this is very interesting because we know that Warren Buffett is going to know when the crashes are going to occur, and we will have to see where this goes. The whole energy sector obviously is now traded in completely different circumstances that were only a year ago. That is very telling. This will be something to look at in the future. Look at this right here, how it extends out into the global economy. China's housing prices year over year, we're looking at it, haven't been at this low for many, many years, and we will see how bad it can actually get when, even though you have the most massive public works project that has ever taken place in the history of man, and it is still not keeping the economy going. Why? Because real investment all around the world is declining. You simply cannot sustain yourself. Look at the US. When other nations in the world are suffering, they are affected as well. When other nations suffer, the US suffers. And this goes for every single country for the most part, because you can't get away with it with a globalized economy anymore. We've offshored all of the jobs over to China, over to the third world, and quite frankly, if they're in trouble, we are in trouble as well. Now, to go back to what I was saying at the beginning with the capital controls, they are going to impose some sort of capital controls in most countries around the world. I believe they will go for the bail-ins. Now, if you're worried about your money in the banking system, the number one thing you can do, in fact, if you want to fight against the bankers, why do you have your money in the banking system? Other than, of course, what you need for your daily transactions. We have to pay bills. We possibly work 9-to-5 jobs. We get paid. The money goes into our banking system. Understood. But your savings, if you have any savings, you don't want to keep them in the Federal Reserve notes or any sort of note of your central bank of choice around the world. You want to keep them in real assets. Now, people are thinking, you know what, I can't afford a home. Look at the prices in Vancouver or Tokyo or Hong Kong. These prices are $1 million a piece. I cannot afford that. Well, I'm going to cover very basic steps that you can take today. Obviously, you want to own real estate if you can. That is very important. But why are you looking at those $1 million homes? What about storage lockers? What about parking spots in a nice environment, perhaps in a nice condominium? What about looking at land, farmland, if you can afford it? Yes, the prices may not be high. They may not be extremely high tomorrow. They may actually decline, but at least you will hang on and you'll have something of real wealth. You can have precious metals. You can have coins, common coins, or what they call junk silver. These are great things to have. What about storable food? Don't deny that. Now, more importantly than all of these, I believe that using the money GPS strategy, which is what I talk about in the Insiders, the money GPS strategy of having things like solar panels to provide yourself with your own electricity source. You can obviously connect it into the power grid and actually be paid back money in certain instances, and there are incentives for different cities around the world or different provinces or states that they will actually give you money back for paying into their system. So this is quite interesting. Look into that for yourself. You also want to have a garden. If you live in an area where you basically don't have a year-round good weather like I'm experiencing right now at the moment, you can have a greenhouse, and that will extend your growing time. So these things do cost money. They do take time. However, you can have these things to actually provide yourself and be self-sustainable, self-sufficient. So this is important. You want your own supply of water. Check out a website called findaspring.com. That will allow you to get your own high-quality spring water right from the ground. You don't have to rely on the polluted water sources. I've covered it before here. You have radiation, they have pharmaceutical drugs, and all kinds of other garbage in the system. You could provide the three most essential things for your own good right here, and that is the best way to safeguard everything that you have. If you found this video informative, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. Oh, and I almost forgot, just this quick thing I want to mention. Putin, the West already supplies arms to Kiev, but Moscow optimistic in the Minsk deal. I just wanted to throw this in right at the end. It's not necessarily related, but they are going ahead and actually saying, Putin's actually saying, look, the US and NATO, they're actually supplying our opposition. This is called a proxy war, and he's actually mentioning that right here. I can't believe that he actually went ahead and said that. That is essentially a quote if you want to take a look at this article from RT. And that is it for today. Please give me a thumbs up. You listen, when you give me a thumbs up, that signals not just to me that you like the information, but it signals to the other YouTubers, check out this Money GPS guy, because I will come up higher up on the rankings instead of some of those others that are not necessarily as informative as the Money GPS, of course, and not to mention the fact that I am extremely biased about the Money GPS. Now, if you want to become an insider, the Insiders is available at themoneygps.com. You just scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.